and we'll get into it all right now. Obviously, the Edmonton Oilers hired Stan Bowman this morning to be their new general manager after a couple of months, obviously, of no general manager, of Ken Holland moving on from the team, and Stan Bowman was a candidate we had all heard about. I don't think we were all that interested in it, obviously, with everything that has happened with him and the Chicago Blackhawks and the Kyle Beach situation. But here we are. Stan Bowman is now the new general manager. I'm sure many of you heard the press conference today. I'm curious to know what a lot of you thought about I guess your opinion before the press conference and the opinion after the press conference, because I know I've been on this show and said I didn't want Stan Bowman to be the general manager of the team, and because of everything that happened, and quite frankly, I'm still not 100% sure where I feel on the whole situation. I think some of the answers that Bowman gave, and I'm reading the stuff from, I believe it is the Respect group with Sheldon Kennedy, and the work Stan Bowman has put in gave me a little bit of reassurance in that regard, that Stan Bowman is trying to turn around and make a difference for what he has done in the past in a couple of situations. Now, obviously, I don't want to get too deep into what happened with Chicago and Kyle Beach, because frankly, I'm maybe not as educated on it as I should be, and I don't want to misspeak on something. So I think that's fair to say. So, Aaron, what are you kind of feeling in this situation? We'll get into what everyone's saying too in the YouTube chat as well, and because there's quite a lot of comments already,
so like,
and rightfully so.
My takeaway once again is I wasn't in the room. I don't know what happened. I know there's a lot of people out there that we like to think we know what happened, but we don't know entirely. I am all for second chances. I am a firm believer in second chances. Clearly, he has done some things here that people that are involved in it say that, okay, thinking that he is slightly changed. Man, my kind of thing is just, this is such an unnecessary headache to bring into a situation when you've had such a dream off season. You just went to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. You have signed guy. You lost by 1 goal. Everything's been so good, and this is a little bit of a dark cloud on what has been an otherwise beautifully sunny summer. And just like you mentioned, I still got to process it all. There's nothing I can do about it now. He is the general manager, so either hop on or hop off. Hop on board, actually. Shout out Power Sports Marine.
Yep, that's where we are today. A lot of great boats down here.
A lot of great boats. We're actually up in the top area here where we can oversee the whole showroom. Would have liked to do it on a boat. I don't know how I feel about this yet, but I do believe firmly in second chances. I do.
Yeah, I believe in second chances if someone's willing to put in the work to prove that they deserve that second chance. And, and like I said earlier, beforehand, I didn't know about the stuff that Stan Bowman had the work he had put in. You just kind of saw they being reinstated by the NHL. And then all of a sudden, there's a speculation with the Oilers, and it's just like, didn't feel right. But again, you see the quote from the Sheldon Kennedy and the Respect group, which we'll get into as well. I got the quote with me, which I'll read. And then the conversation today, it's okay. I think this guy is trying to make things better for himself. Well, let's get into what you guys are saying in the Greta YouTube chat right now. Obviously, head down to Greta. Maybe you want to have a little bit of a drink after the news today and have more conversations with people down there. The people at Greta are all massive Oilers fans and be more than willing to have some chats with you about what's going on. And maybe you guys can find some common ground.
Yeah, talk it out. Talk it out over a beer.
And also, maybe if you don't want to talk about it, just go and see if you can beat Tyler's high score at the football game down there. Because
also
you won't.
Call.
And you'll beat Waz's because it's like 20. But getting into the
what do we got in the chat
right now? Chat right now. Joel was in with the first comment of the day. Going to be some angry folks in oil country today. I'm just going to say this. I was on the hate train, read Sheldon's 3-page write-up, just 2 comments on Bowman and his work. It made me feel better about the thought process behind considering him, but still doesn't explain why Jeff Jackson picked him. I guess we'll see a little bit more before the press conference. Yes, this event was made quite early in the morning. That came in at 9:15, an hour, 15 minutes before the press conference even began. A lot of other comments here too about it too, from Ryan, just saying the frustration about why this is the new GM. Matthew, you got mixed up here. Scotty Bowman is not Stan Bowman.
Yeah.
And I know Wyatt Kyle came in pretty quick after and just said, no, you're thinking of the wrong guy. A couple other comments we've got. Bradley McDonald said this franchise is embarrassing to be a fan of sometimes. And I think that's fair. The Oilers have gone through a bit of a weird time, I guess you can say, in the last, what would that be? We're
the second chance team.
Yeah, we are the second chance team. And I shouldn't label people quite so much, but quite frankly, well, Evander Kane came to this team, what, in 2021, I think, and he was kind of the first player they 2022.
Yes.
Thank you, was. He was kind of the first guy that came in and they given a second chance to, but Evander Kane was proven not.
Cassian.
Yeah, Cassian as well. Evander Kane was not found guilty. The one that really always bugged me for a variety of reasons was Jake Virtanen.
Oh yeah,
because he sucked.
Yeah, he wasn't good. He wasn't good at hockey.
And he just like put that out there. A couple other things. Chell Iverson came in and said, "My opinion hasn't changed. I'm not one of the people that thinks Bowman is is a devil incarnated. It's completely unnecessary and it's an optics nightmare. Why it just makes zero sense." And I think that's another part of it too. Is you're telling, I know Stan Bowman has 3 Stanley Cups, and again, we've been on this show and spoke about how well the team was kind of built. He was there beforehand too.
But wasn't necessarily him. He was there for the downfall.
Yeah, he won still, and like I just wonder, it's like there was nobody at the same level. Every other team seemed to figure out a different guy to go and do that. Sergeant Battle, I guess, on a positive note on a Bowman thing. At least Bowman has experience re-signing star players and keeping the core together. I do not like this signing, but I feel better about keeping the core together now. He spoke about a lot in his press conference too, and just kind of his experience with the Blackhawks. Obviously, somewhat of a similar situation. The biggest difference being the ages in the players, like Taves and Kane were kind of coming in younger players during that time, and now here they are at the moment. And then West Side Shane said Jackson going from hero to zero. There was an interesting
He's still a hero. He still had a great offseason. Don't do that.
There was an interesting comment in the press conference from Jackson, though, which we'll get into gradually as well, and just his comments on the fan base, which I really didn't like, to be honest. But for the most part, I thought the press conference was fairly encouraging. Let's see what else is kind of talking about here. We'll get you in on the show a little bit earlier. You watched the press conference.
Yeah, a little bit.
What was your kind of biggest takeaway?
My biggest takeaway was just them basically trying to say how we understand what happened with Kyle Beach. Stan Bowman's taken the necessary steps to learn from what happened. He was accountable, and basically they addressed the situation that happened. And it was primarily a heavy talk about what happened in Chicago with Kyle Beach 2010. There was a few hockey questions mixed in there, but a lot of the focus was on Stan Bowman, what happened, and going forward.
Yeah, and I think going forward, there was another comment in there too, which let's just get into the press conference. Right off the bat, they obviously addressed everything that had happened in Chicago and what Stan Bowman had been up to since then. And for those of you who don't know, he's been working with Sheldon Kennedy in the Respect Group. And the quote from Sheldon Kennedy in his article is interesting. He said, "So why am I writing this piece? It's a 3-page document." I believe Joel referenced it in his quote, in his comment as well. "I believe Stan should be a valuable asset to an organization due to his accomplishments of his past mistakes and his relentless efforts to make the locker room / game safer for everyone. He possesses insight, knowledge, and confidence needed to lead in this area. I feel building a strong and healthy culture within an organization and practicing it on an ongoing basis will be the priority for Stan. I also believe Stan will carry this message within the hockey ecosystem, and which can only help. Lastly, and most importantly, I feel that Stan will do everything in his power to make sure what happened to Kyle Beach, who is a hero in my opinion, will not happen to anyone else. I know that wherever Stan lands, whether in the game of hockey or not, he will be a true champion in the important area of respect." What do you make of that comment, Aaron? Do you have any thoughts on that quote?
If he supports him, I like that there's support there. As I said, I'm still going through the process right now of trying to determine how I feel. That's a good vote of confidence. Once again, they're just words. I need to see some actions of how are you going to make sure this doesn't happen, blah, 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 all that.
Yeah. At the press conference, obviously, like I just mentioned, they really get into the Kyle Beach stuff right off the bat. And Jeff Jackson does address that what happened in Chicago was obviously wrong, and the way it was handled was terribly, and basically says like it wouldn't happen in this situation again. Stan Bowman spoke about his relationship with Kyle Beach too, initially saying that he did reach out to Kyle after the incident happened, when everything kind of came to the front of the news, and wasn't able to reach out to him. But on a second attempt, after conversation with Sheldon Kennedy said maybe give us some time and reach out again. He was able to have a conversation with Kyle Beach and talk to him. He said he had about a 9-minute conversation, kind of apologized. Obviously, I'm sure there was a bunch of other things that happened in that conversation too. And it turns out that he actually went to told Kyle Beach what he was kind of working on with the Respect Group. I went to go and speak to Kyle Beach's team, who is Trinity Western, which is a youth sports team now, I believe.
Damn right, BC.
In BC, and talk to him about the hockey culture and how things need to change and all that stuff. And he was invited to that conversation with Kyle Beach. So it seems like they have some, I don't want to call it a relationship, but there's conversations happening now, at least that are forcing something to be fixed, I guess you can call it. Maybe that's a bad way to put
steps.
it.
Those are
steps. That's a good way to put it.
Once again, actions. I said I just hear words. Those are actions. That's good.
Yeah. So then he also went on to say that he spoke with Kyle Beach last night, and I believe Jack Jackson also mentioned that. Does it give you any confidence that Beach is, I guess, involved within these conversations a little bit, and there is some reassurance from him that this is okay to happen?
A little bit. I think it's good to have that reassurance that Stan Bowman reached out to him multiple times. I think he mentioned the press conference. I reached out the first time, he didn't respond, and Sheldon Kennedy kind of pushed him to reach out again. And they had I think he said Stan Bowman said they had a 15-minute phone call yesterday, and apparently Kyle Beach endorsed and supported Stan Bowman to take the Oilers job and take this role. So that is a little bit encouraging. And I know a lot of people are just going to say that doesn't matter considering everything that's been done and everything that Stan Bowman did with Chicago and how he just did nothing and how we're allowing this to kind of come into the organization now. It's a tough spot to be in, but it is encouraging to know that Kyle Beach supports Stan Bowman in this situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that is an important part of all of this, and obviously everyone's opinion matters on this. Everyone's opinion is welcome in this. We're gonna kind of
there's no wrong opinions.
Let's just be respectful to each other in the chat. I think that's important today. We don't need to be calling each other idiots or anything like that. Like, we're all gonna have our opinions on this, and the three of us all have probably different opinions.
Jeff Jackson said it himself. We're entitled to our own opinions.
Yeah, I didn't love this quote from Jackson. He said, fans are entitled to their opinion. They have opinions about firing coaches, making trades. I think the decision to bring Stan in is the best interest for the organization. Give him a chance, and I'm not worried about it. There was also a certain part in there, too, where he goes on to talk about the backlash, and he's like, I'm not worried about the backlash. And I just think that's
join
wrong.
The chat, brother. Join the chat then.
Like, at the end of the day, this fan base has proven throughout the playoffs how amazing they can be and how positive this city can be about this team. Like, we spoke about it. There was no arrests or anything of bad criminal offense after Game 7 when we've seen other cities literally blow up their own city and destroy it. The worst thing that happened here is a few people got drunk and got arrested.
There was 5 people, I believe, that got arrested. It does kind of feel like a little, you do so well as a fan base, skill this love. Kind of feels like a slap in the face, but can't take it that way. I got to stay positive here.
Daryl Sutter says, what was the question? Context is big. The question was literally like, what do you make of the, paraphrasing a little bit, it was basically like, what do you make of the fans' reactions with this? And that's what he said. And I just think the backlash should matter. The fans' opinion on the organization matters massively. And it should it have a huge impact on decisions? Maybe not, but it also shouldn't be tossed aside in these conversations.
I think you should take it into account for sure.
Yes.
I think taking a temperature check of the fan base is important, considering, I mean, the fan base are the reasons why we have this job, and everyone comes to games and buys merchandise, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next few months, the next year, if fans do start to will attendance drop? I don't know. Will merchandise sales drop? It's tough to say, right? Like, this fan base will support,
it won't.
It won't,
right? And that's the only way to really hurt the Oilers is to hurt them financially. That's when they start to kind of clue in. Okay, we're hurting financially. Okay, now we're going to take your advice.
Call.
But if it doesn't, it's just going to continue to stay the same. And interesting enough, last night I restarted watching The Last Dance. I was watching the first episode, and they were talking about hiring Jerry Krause, and the owner of the Bulls at the time said, I wasn't hiring someone to win a personality contest. I was hiring someone. I wanted someone who truly to believe in building a team the way I wanted to. So that's where Jackson's in right now. He just wants to build a contender and win the Stanley Cup, and that's the same with Daryl Cates. Daryl Cates only cares about winning the cup. That's all he cares about.
Daryl Sutter in the chat says this will not be a non-issue in a week. I completely disagree. I think Oilers fans hold a lot of stuff forever. I mean, we talk about Don and very different situations. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
We talk about Donnell Nurse's contract every
Yeah.
single day of the week.
Yes.
That was signed 2 years ago.
Yeah.
3 years ago now.
We will always find something to be upset
people
about.
always critical of Evander Kane despite
Eh,
being innocent and all that stuff. And hey, we just spoke about Jake Virtanen. Like, I don't think this is gonna just blow over for what it's worth.
Now, once again, do you think a couple wins to start the season,
Look,
that talk will go down? Winning cures everything,
yeah.
obviously. Let's say he makes a great trade at the trade deadline. I'm sure some of this will quiet down, but people never forget. It'll always be in the back of your brain.
Yeah, like, of course. Like, I think if you get out to a good start, then it's going to be, obviously, people are going to move on from it. Lance says a good Draisaitl contract and a smart move trade from Bowman will give some forgiveness. I don't know.
Well, that's what
I think people will build their own opinion on him for what he does with Edmonton, but that will never outshine what has happened in the past.
Well, he's forever, for the rest of his life, he's going to have this black cloud over his head.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's just going to be.
And as a fan of the team myself, it's unfortunate now that this black cloud has to carry over to the Edmonton Oilers after having such a successful season and off season, and now we're talking about all of this. It definitely sucks from so many different perspectives.
There's an interesting comment here from Omar, and then we will get Woz on the screen, I promise. He says, Omar says, well, 4 points actually, I guess, and one of them I really actually wanted to dig into a little bit. Number one, Kyle Beach is supporting this, which is a positive in all of this, of course. Number two, Jeff Jackson is running the show. Nothing happens without his approval. Yep, I think that's become very clear and obvious. Number three, I call BS on Connor and Leon not being asked about their thoughts. That's what I wanted to get into. But number four, again, Kyle Beach is okay with this. Yes, Jeff Jackson came out and said the only people he had spoken to about making this decision were Daryl Cates and then senior management within the Oilers Entertainment Group, and stated that he had not spoken with any of the players. He didn't say anything about Knobloch. I would assume he's spoken to Knobloch.
I'd hope.
Yeah. He clearly said, though, I have not spoken to any of the players about this decision. They do not want to be involved in these conversations. He said a similar message when Woodcroft was fired and Chris Knobloch was brought in, and you went into the room the next day and the players were upset about it. But I think also happy about Knobloch, obviously the history with McDavid there that we all know about. But
I think it's weird, dude. I think you always got to ask
I think he did.
The best player. That's what Omar just said. He doesn't believe that.
I think you have to talk to him. I don't think you need to give them. I don't think he's calling them to be like, should I do this? Should I not do this? I think he's calling them to tell them that this is an option.
Yeah.
And
a heads up.
A lead. Yeah, a heads up. And I'm sure on the phone, Leon, Connor, Hyman, whoever, Daryl, like all these guys are probably giving their opinion on it too. This isn't the 30-minute conversation. 30-second conversation. This is something that probably goes on for longer. And quite frankly, if Connor McDavid is turning around and being like, no, we can't do this, I don't think Jeff Jackson is just going to do it anyway. And also, too, one thing that needs to be considered, if Jeff Jackson is telling us, the fans, and I believe, obviously, he tells us the truth and everything. Again, I do think there was conversations, but I'm sure that it was a little bit different. He was his agent. He knows what Connor McDavid wants. Connor McDavid clearly hasn't wanted this in the past and probably has been involved in too many conversations that he's just been like, I just want to play. And that's always been the thing with McDavid is that I'm a player. I don't make these decisions. So
what's up, Nation citizens? If you like that video, then you need to be subscribed to the Oilers Nation YouTube. Podcasts, live shows, exclusive interviews, and analysis. Everything you need from your favorite voices at Oilers Nation. And you don't want to miss any of it, so hammer that subscribe button.